Hey gang, Drex here from DrexFactor.com, here to answer one of the most common questions that people have when they first start spinning. How long should my tethers be? It's a simple question that can have a pretty complicated answer depending upon many factors. Today, I'm going to do my best to simplify it a bit so you can get spinning sooner and figure out what works best for you. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to give a shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Darkmonk, Amazing Lights, Flow Toys, Spinballs, and UltraPoi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can visit them all on the web by following the links down in the description of this video. Now, on with the show. I'm going to start off answering this with something that may not seem like much of an answer, and that's to say there's no single correct length for poi tethers to be. Different tether lengths are good for different things, and what length works best for you will depend a lot on what things you want to work on. In general, poi seem to default to the length of your arm, basically from the first joint of your thumb all the way up to the crease of your shoulder. On most people, tethers this long wind up being somewhere between 20 inches or 50 centimeters and 24 inches or 60 centimeters long. I count anything longer than this as long poi and anything shorter as short poi. Short poi are good for making quick, clean stalls as well as for inside plane work such as inversions, lovelacing, and toroids. For many years, poi that stopped mid-biceps were considered the norm amongst tech spinners. Some spinners opted for even shorter, sometimes no longer than elbow length. Short poi have the benefit of being lighter and easier to control than longer poi. For this reason, I frequently see this length being used by female or younger spinners. Popular spinners who've used this length include Chris Rovo, Kate McCoy, Charlie Cushing, Alien John, Key Lee, and even myself for a time. The drawbacks of short poi are that they make contact poi nearly impossible. They require you to spin faster than any other length, and your planes are more difficult to control. In addition, because the patterns they create tend to be small, they're generally only good for performing in small and intimate environments. On the other end of the spectrum are longer poi. These are poi that are longer than your arm, sometimes being able to touch the ground from a neutral position. Long poi are good for contact poi, juggling, and they make tosses much easier. The longer the tether, the bigger the target when it comes to catching them. They slow down the movement of the poi, making it easier to learn more complicated tricks, and they produce patterns that can be seen from great distances away. This is the length preferred by many of the classical and European spinners, as well as jugglers, including Nick Woolsey, Ronan McLaughlin, Keith Marshall, Ashley Galliford, and Chris Kelly. The downsides of long poi are that they occupy so much space that they can be difficult to control, especially for beginners. They also tend to be heavier, so collisions will have a greater impact, and they require more energy to get moving. Finally, it can be difficult to find a good way to shorten them for doing insides work. You're almost certainly going to find that over time your preference in poi length will change. I started out with poi that were the same length as my arm and then shortened them considerably to only bicep length the first 2 years that I was spinning. That was the length I used for about 5 years until I began experimenting with longer tethers, finally settling back on poi that were as long as my arm once again. If you're just starting off, it's a pretty safe bet to go with the length of your arm. You can wrap the tethers around your hand to shorten them up for insides work, and they're still long enough that you can do contact poi as well as throws fairly easily. It's really the best balance of all worlds until you can experiment enough to find out what you really like. You can also start off by looking at the spinners whose work you most enjoy and figure out what length of poi they spin, giving yourself a place to start. Try new things, see what sticks, and see what length of poi that style happens to support. Thanks so much for watching. If you got anything out of this video, please hit that like and subscribe button to help my channel grow. Special thanks to all of my awesome supporters on Patreon. You guys are the ones that make these videos possible. If you're not a current backer and would like to sign up to support the work that I do, please go to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi. Thanks again, and peace.